that is a big part of the reason why we have to have conversation at a local level. How are we going to address this?
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to just wait until the federal government does the right thing? Because in my experience, we've been
Welcome to Shaping the Basin. I am here today with Commissioner DeGroot. Thank you for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate your time. We have some some audience questions for you, so I'll start with those.
Sure.
What are you most proud of accomplishing?
Oh my goodness. Gosh, the list is pretty long. We've done quite a bit. I would say, we have been able to experience some real growth in Klamath over the course of the last 8-9 years. And, when we started this journey and I got first elected in 2016, I asked, what's the plan, right? That was of our leaders when I decided to run. What's the plan for the future? How are we going to grow our community? How are we going to grow our economy? Because I truly believe if you're not growing, you're dying as a community and as a as a city or as a county. And the answer was twofold. It was one, they told me about this one great project that was going to save us all, right? It was going to bring in all these jobs, and asked to take a look at it, and you could tell it had so many holes in it. And then the other answer is, well, Derek, we've been told by Portland State University that we just can't grow, right? And we can't win. And it's almost like this defeatist attitude. And I think since that time, obviously we've had just a whole number of wins, and the strategy has completely shifted, and there's all kinds of great things going on. But it's also an attitude change that has occurred, where I think there's a belief in this community that we can grow, that we can succeed, that we can bring back the economy and bring back good, real jobs. So that fight continues. That's something that happens over decades, not something over months or just a handful of years. But I think the strategy is there, and I think the attitude is there, and that's probably just changing the mindset is so difficult. And I think that's probably would be what I'm most proud of so far.
That's great. What is something you're looking forward to accomplishing this year?
Oh, this year. So at the beginning of this year, I told my colleagues, told the constituents, this year I see some real opportunity at the federal level to try to move policy. And I've dedicated my year to really just working on federal policy. There's a lot of chaos in DC right now. I've been back a handful of times already this year, and I plan on going back another handful of times. And it's interesting the take on it, but where there's chaos, I see also opportunity, right? There's opportunity to sneak some stuff in that really benefits the basin. And whether that is new policy on forest management, new policy on water, new policy on areas of natural resources where this community used to thrive decades and decades ago, and where federal policy has really hindered what we're able to accomplish. And making some changes there, moving that pendulum a little bit back away from the silliness where we are today and towards something that's more manageable and more reasonable. So that's what I'd like to accomplish. I have another meeting this week where we're going to talk about some more federal policy on timber. And if I can get just a sliver of what I'm asking for, it'll be a big win.
Great. Well, we'll look forward to an update. Maybe we'll have to have you back on
happy
to tell us how that went.
I'm at bat. Can't tell you if I'm going to get a hit, but I'm at bat.
Yeah. What frustrates you as a commissioner?
Everything. All the time. Are you kidding me? It's interesting when you're not doing the job and you're on the outside looking in, you're like, why won't things move faster? And I will say to some degree, I have learned that it's probably good for things to move slow in some cases. But sometimes it's just, you see what needs to be done. It's not a huge task to get something accomplished. Let's just get it, take it off our plate, and then we don't have to talk about it anymore, and that one's finished. That doesn't necessarily occur. So sometimes you just say, hey, if everybody would just agree with me for one day, we could get so much done. But I will tell you, being in politics, being in a leadership position like this, you need to learn to live with frustration, because it just happens all the time as you're trying to push and push and push and move that needle. You're always pushing against some type of a resistance. And that's okay, right? Because it moderates how far things can swing and how quickly things can swing. But we're also looking to correct decades of poor policy, and correcting that in a short amount of time is difficult.
Sure. What is something about being a commissioner you didn't expect?
I did not expect to travel as much as I do. Honestly, it's in order to affect change in the room, you have to be in the room. A lot of times, a phone call or an email just doesn't cut it. It was interesting. The last time I was in DC, I was in one of the congressman's office, and I walked in, and the staff said, do you have an apartment here? Are you? And I'm like, no, but you guys need to hear what I have to say every week until you listen. And as I left, they're like, all right, see you next week. And I'm like, you just might. So in order to move the needle, sometimes you just need to be there. And I didn't anticipate traveling as much as I do.
Mm-hmm. Talking about that, there's city, county, state, federal, and all of you handle a different part, but it's all connected.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Trying to get everybody aligned is hard. We started a group, it's a bit over a year ago now, called the Council of Governments, where we try to at least bring all of our 5 cities and towns, the county, the tribes, and our state legislators together. Every once in a while. It's not once a quarter, I think it is, and talk about how we can work together to get some things accomplished. And I think that has been fruitful. It continues to be kind of a struggle getting everybody to buy into that process. As much progress as we have made breaking down silos in this community to get everybody kind of working together, everybody still has their sandbox, and they're still pretty protective of their sandbox. So, it's not easy, but you just work at it and keep talking to people, keep trying to convince them of your way, bend a little bit when you need to, recognize when a loss is a win.
Yeah. Tell me about a loss that has been a win.
Oh, shoot. Sure. I can, I will, when the county was working on bringing a grocery store to downtown, the commissioners were working hard. We were in a debate, and I'll tell you, initially, there were 2 different grocers that were wanting to come in and fill that building and buy that building from the county after we had purchased it. And the initial presentations, I was actually advocating for the one that was not Holiday Market. And that was a 2-to-1 vote. And then as soon as you lose the vote, you go to work on saying, okay, well, how are we going to make this the best it can be? And they ended up being phenomenal to work with. And it's like, so you just recognize, like, okay, well, I lost. So what do? You go move forward, and you jump in and say, this is the direction we're going. How do you make it the best it can be? And that ended up being a huge win. I was a big advocate for buying the building and doing something to try to make a difference in downtown, where we did have a food desert. But it's just, I think both directions would have been beneficial. And in the end, I think that the company that I didn't vote for was the right fit. So that was a great way to say, nice us.
Nice.
Yeah.
Earlier you talked about some of the opportunity that exists right now at the federal level, but for our community, the growth that you've been talking about, what are some of our biggest opportunities here in Klamath?
Oh, goodness gracious. The list is so long. I think first, again, is we need to continue to build on that change in mindset and the momentum you can build for that. I think the general public needs to take a step back, look at the community, and recognize all the advantages that we have here, all of the resources that we have here. Take a look and say, wow, we are right on a major highway, right? As it comes right through the middle of our community. We have 2 Class 1 rails. We have an airport. So transportation-wise, we're set up wonderfully. Oregon as a whole has a huge energy problem. In fact, I would say the country as a whole has an energy problem, but Oregon specifically and Klamath is set up very well to try to assist in that area for growth. So there's so much opportunity. Again, the outdoor recreation and the reasons that we actually live here. Some of us just born here and stayed, but I think people are moving here or in migration. Is finally meeting and or exceeding our out migration, which means we have more people moving here than we do leaving. And that's a huge win because people are recognizing and seeing what a wonderful place it is to live, raise a family, do those types of things. You're not going to have the hustle and bustle. Although I sat through a red light like twice the other day, and I'm like, man, Derrick, you got the win, but look what you just had to do. You just sat through a red light, and you didn't get through it. So that's a good thing, though. Seeing that win, seeing the different license plates. But I also think we need to, as a community, understand that we need to be welcoming, and I think our people that are moving to this community need to understand who we are, because we're not going to change for you. You moved here for a reason. Understand who we are before you decide to point fingers. So, yeah.
What do you think our biggest challenge is?
Same thing.
Mindset,
right? That is the hardest part of the job. As a community leader, the hardest part of the job is community morale. Always will be, and self-belief. I think that's going to be true of any community, regardless of how successful or not you are.
Mm-hmm. What do you think? I don't love the mindset issue, but I like talking about this because we talk about it a lot at the chamber.
Mm-hmm.
And it always feels a little bit like the grassroots efforts, like just keep beating the drum of positivity and the good things that we have going. But do you have any other ideas for how that could be affected?
Sure. I think placemaking is important. People sometimes wonder why you're investing in little, infrastructure things around the community, whether that's artwork or different improvements, or, the city has done a great job working with Sky Lakes in parks and improvement. And there's been a lot of folks that have been involved in that. So I shouldn't just say those two, but so many people have really worked on those things. The Downtown Association has done a great job, but so has, Bonanza and Merrill and Malin and Chiloquin done so great jobs with placemaking in their communities as well. And the fairgrounds, my goodness, the improvements that have been made down there and the hard work of those folks. Placemaking is important. It gives people a space to be proud of. As you drive around our community, you need to see things that you're proud of. Pride is a big part of changing that mindset, being proud of the community that you live in. So I think people don't always recognize what's happening there and why those investments are necessarily being made. But also keep in mind that you're also taking specific dollars that you have less discretion with. You're not going to use those for operating. That would be poor management. So,
sure.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Placemaking
is one of the things that you can really do, and then pushing on making people more and more aware. It's incredible to me how many young people don't know that you can go grab a kayak and jump on the Wood River, and what an amazing day that is. How many people in our community still haven't walked Spence Mountain is incredible to me. We have these beautiful things. And, look, if outdoors isn't your thing, number one, are you sure you're in the right place? But I get that, but go experience that. I mean, just being out there will change your mood, change your mindset.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Talking about government, we have to talk a little bit about the budget stuff that's been in the news. So what are some of the specific plans or strategies you're using to help with that issue?
I think the right now the biggest one is talking about the problem, right? I don't know if folks quite have grasped how big the problem is with the county's budget, and it is not. You look at state government, and they have budget problems, but my goodness, the government's so bloated, and it's their solve to a broken government is more government. Over the course of the last 8-9 years, we have downsized and downsized and cut and cut and cut. I do believe in small government, and that's a great thing. One of the areas that you can't get too small in is law enforcement. And we've run out of money to provide for law enforcement. And it's not because we haven't been good stewards with the money. For the most part, I think sometimes we've overspent in a couple of areas, but we've overspent in order to maintain the services that we already provide. And that's going to come to an end. The money that we collect in property taxes, meaning the money that the citizens of Klamath County pay for the services, has either stayed stagnant or declined, some over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. And the cost to provide that same service continues to go up, especially when we saw these huge inflation rates and wage increases in order to maintain good people. If you don't pay a competitive wage, you lose all the good people, and then you can't provide the service anyway. So trying to stay competitive, which you hope you are, but sometimes if you're going to lose people to money, you're going to lose people to money because you can't necessarily keep up. But we need to talk more about the problem, and the problem is real. There's not enough money to continue to provide the same level of service that we've seen over the course of the last 20 years. It just is, there's not. Will someday there be a rise in property taxes through development that helps cover some of those? Maybe, but and you hope so, and people are working very hard to make that a reality. But in the meantime, right, and it's a quick meantime, the road fund that we've used to prop up the patrol from the sheriff's department is going to be gone soon. The revenues that we have received from the federal government are getting to be less and less and less, and could even be going away. It's one of the things I'm working on really hard this year, is trying to get the federal government to be a good landowner in Klamath County. Folks may, as a reminder to folks, they own nearly 60% of the land base in Klamath County, right? Over 6,100 square miles of land in Klamath County, and the federal government owns 58% of it. That's an incredible amount. They don't pay property taxes, right? So, and they don't manage the timber in the same way that they did when timber paid for all of those services. So this huge divergence where if you go back to the late 70s, early 80s, we were receiving $11-12 million a year off of federal lands, right, through timber harvest. And today, let's go just last year, you're talking $4.5 million, $5 million. Mm-hmm. If you just go to 2001, when Secure Rural Schools replaced timber harvest, the amount that was allocated to the Secure Rural Schools program by Congress has been diluted by including more and more communities across the country into that program without actually increasing the amount that's allocated. So the amount that goes to those original timber-dependent counties has been diluted. It has decreased because it was on this path to try to take us off and wean us off of these federal payments. And that I actually agree with. Great, get us off of that, but you have to at the same time be replacing it with something else or giving us back timber, so that we can come back. It's so today, if you account for the decrease and you account for just a modest amount of inflation, the amount of revenue that comes from the federal government represents about 20% of what it was just in 2001. So over the last 24 years, we've had an 80% reduction in the dollars that we receive from the federal government because they are such a big landowner. And at some point, and this is the conversation that I'm having with folks back east when I go, is you need to be a responsible landowner. Mm-hmm. Wildfires are your fault, right? The fact that we live in smoke is your fault. You told us tourism would replace timber, and then you replaced timber with smoke. So how are you going to have tourism, right? It's just like, this is just a non-winning. You're a bad property owner. And if you weren't the federal government, we would be telling you you're a bad property owner. We would be having code enforcement tell you you need to clean up your mess before you cause a fire and hurt your neighbors, which you do, right? So I kind of got on my soapbox there, but it is that is a big part of the reason why we have to have conversation at a local level. How are we going to address this? Mm-hmm. Are we going to just wait until the federal government does the right thing? Because in my experience, we've been waiting a long time.
If a picture says 1,000 words, imagine the story. 24 frames a second can tell about your business. 40 Deuce Films.
I'm going to take us to, I know housing has been really important to you. Do you feel like we're starting to gain on that? I know we've had a shortage of homes, and that has been a platform that you've been passionate about. Are we making progress?
Yes and no. So we're building homes, but housing starts aren't where they need to be in order for us to solve the housing problem here in Klamath. But I think that we have good strategies in place to try to address some of that. We've done a good job recruiting builders. I don't think that we have necessarily the local manpower to really catch up. We're going to have folks come in, build a few homes, and maybe go, right? Those national brands come in and do those types of things, or maybe even regional brands come in and do those types of things. But I think there's some good strategies in place to try to address that. And I think folks need to when they are watching what we're doing and where we're targeting and things like that, keep in mind every door, regardless of the cost of that door, especially if the government hasn't had to help subsidize the cost of that door, relieves pressure on the entire housing market, right? And stabilizes the housing market. So, I think that we're making headway, but there's still a ton of work to do.
Mm-hmm. And you may not know the answer to this, so I'm kind of asking your opinion.
That'd be great if I could say, I don't know.
When we're talking about public safety, I understand the inflation and the inflation, salaries are raised, all of those kind of things. But is that the whole issue, or do we have more crime than we did before?
Oh, gosh. So I will, start with this. I'm not a cop. Don't know how to be a cop. Never was a cop. Never gonna be a cop. And so I do rely on the experts in those fields to tell us what's necessary, why we're seeing certain things. And then it is our job to do the best we can to give them the resources to do what they can to keep this community as safe as possible. Again, we're running out of money. So this community is going to have to, at some point, regardless of how you feel about taxes, have to have a conversation someday about how you address it. Mm-hmm. I do think, I know that our sheriff's department is understaffed, completely understaffed. And we're seeing crime rates go up for a lot of reasons. I think crime rates have gone up because we have still not overcome some of the poverty issues that we have in Klamath, right? As much gains as much progress, as we've made in working on the economy. There's still a lot to do to bring people out of poverty that, again, I believe was created by the federal government. Shame on them. But yeah, I think that there's more crime. I think society in general is not as respectful as it once was. It's harder and harder to recruit cops. Yeah. We don't revere law enforcement like we once did. When we were children, cops were revered and respected. Mm-hmm. And today they're not treated that way. Yeah. And I can't imagine being a cop today versus a cop then. So we have a lot of work to do to try to reinstill that in our youth so that they grow up, sure, questioning authority, but also respecting it. Yeah. And I think a lot of that's been lost. And then social media and the internet has shrunk the world and really divided us, right? There's so much divisiveness. I cannot tell you how much, and this may be, going back to the top of the interview, is one of the most frustrating parts of this job. How many people get so bent out of shape about where somebody stands politically, or my goodness, you say, hey, I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat, and instantly you're hated by someone just because you do this. You've got to be kidding me. Y'all need to grow up. It is absolutely outlandish that can hurt your feeling. Mm-hmm. I tell people all the time, like, you can try to hurt my feeling all you want, but I only got one left at this point, and Terry owns it. So if you can get her permission to hurt my feeling, good luck with that.
There you go. Well, along those lines, I mean, as a commissioner, you are representing a lot of people with a lot of different viewpoints. And then you also are sitting on a board of commissioners where you all have individual opinions. How do you do that?
Well, I think you try. This is hard, right? You try to stay open-minded to all new ideas. Sometimes you get pretty stuck in your thinking, and it happens to all of us. I'm not immune to that. Just, still just a guy, regardless of my position, but stay open to new ideas. Take in information, distill that, and try to make the best decision you possibly can. And as you're taking information, doing it with the board is really easy. It's just three of us, right? Convince me or I'll convince you, or lose a vote, win a vote. And when I lose a vote, I don't get mad or sad about it. I mean, hey, I've been wrong once before too. You might be, I tell the board all the time, and you're like, are you upset? I'm like, no, I've been wrong before. Now it's your turn, so, but you have to just kind of take it kind of lighthearted, lose a vote and move on. When you're talking about the public, distill down, recognize that the loudest voice sometimes is just that, just a loud voice. But really talk to folks, people who are willing to just sit, have an actual conversation without the nonsense. Those are people typically worth listening to, people that you want to yell and scream. Mm-hmm. I really think they make an impact. Oh. Or they wouldn't do it. And I just got to be honest with you, you're just annoying. Right? So we're to break it down to, I'm still a guy who's just like, wow, if you're just yelling and screaming to yell and scream, then I got a 3-year-old granddaughter. She does that too. You can sound just like her.
I think about on Facebook, sometimes we see things that are wrong, like just complete not accurate information. Yeah. And I've had people say, well, why didn't you correct them? But I always like one-on-one. First of all, I don't like to correct anybody. That seems a little bit wrong, but it feels like a waste of time on Facebook. Like they're not really there to listen or get the right information. They just want to like shout it to the world.
Yeah.
Are you on social media?
Try not to be at all. I'll tell folks. So you'll see I have a personal Facebook page, and then I have a commissioner Facebook page, and you'll see a post on there maybe 2 or 3 times a year.
Mhm.
And one of them's for me.
Yeah.
You know,
That makes
and
sense.
as far as going in and looking at social media on a daily basis and like keeping up with
Mhm.
folks, no,
No.
I don't do that.
You don't suffer from FOMO?
No, not even a little bit. No, I tell folks that when I first got on Facebook, it was really only one reason. I have a really big family, so I wanted to keep tabs on them. And I had a few Navy buddies that I wanted to keep tabs on and in contact. On Father's Day, I just texted my Navy buddies. I didn't go on social media to tell everybody else in the world Happy Father's Day, or, it's, I don't even think people communicate with that stuff anymore. I think that they vent. Um, I think there is a million subtle brags. It's just like, come on, y'all. But and then a lot of attacking and hatred and just divisiveness and this just ugliness on the internet and on social media, and I just have no place for that in my life.
Yeah.
I'm a happier person since I took all that stuff off of my phone.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's
Right.
it's great. So I don't correct people out there. People that come into my office having a one-on-one conversation, it's like, no, that's actually not true. I'll tell you, no, that's not true.
Yeah.
And then the folks that come to the, or do whatever, however they want to yell and scream, I don't bother correcting them. That's a waste of my energy.
Uh, Talking about you personally
Yeah.
now for just a minute. One of the things we're doing with this podcast is just highlighting how important it is to get involved and how people bring different things to the table.
Mhm.
What in your background do you think has really helped you, your experiences prior to a commissioner that have really helped you be an effective commissioner?
I think that has evolved over time. I think all of my life experience, 5 decades of life experience, all of it has contributed to how I apply things into this job. Whether that be just my memories as a kid of what this community used to be, and recognizing its potential through my career in real estate and finance, my military career, what this community has meant to my family. I'm a first generation American. My dad's an immigrant, and how welcoming this community was to him. He came here the right way, did the right things, worked really hard, and was rewarded for it. But that doesn't happen unless you have a community that it gives you that opportunity, right? Recognizing you doing all the right things for the right reason and working hard and giving you the opportunities to be successful. So I think all of those apply. I've had a very blessed life. Come from a family. My father came here with nothing really, and became very successful in life, and I've benefited from that and seeing the benefit of what hard work can actually accomplish. The American dream, in my opinion, is still very alive and well, regardless of what you hear on pick your news channel. I think they're all full of it. So pick your news channel. They keep talking about how the American dream is dying. It's like, you guys need to shut up. Don't tell people the dream is dead.
Yeah.
The dream is very much alive. You need to instill hope in people, not beat people down and tell them that where you're at's as good as it gets.
Okay.
That's a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
I'm really trying not to curse on your show, but that makes me mad when you hear that kind of stuff. And we need to be doing the opposite. The American dream is very much alive, and I know it because I live it.
Yes. A few episodes back, Dr. Gutierrez was on from Klamath Community College.
Great guy. Yeah.
And he started out talking about the American dream and how his family came here and why he's so passionate about education. But yeah, where did your dad come from? You said he was the first.
Yep.
Where did he come from?
So my dad was born in Indonesia to an Indonesian national and a gentleman that was in the Dutch army when Dutch occupied Indonesia. So it's a very long story. I've given that speech, kind of told that speech a few times. It's one of my favorite. In fact, I did it at a KCC graduation as the address there, and because it's something I'm very proud of. And then went to the Netherlands after the war was over. There's a long story there, and he was one of 11 children. My grandfather saw the American dream, realized that's where it's at for these kids, and spent 2 years applying for citizenship, or not citizenship, for immigration status, right? In order to come over, you have to get sponsored. Was sponsored by a local church, same church that I was married in many years later, and came here, worked 2 jobs, and my dad, when he got here, he knew maybe a handful of words in English, and just said, "No, we're going to go to work, and if we work hard, the American dream is real," and it very much is.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Now I feel like I'm going to have to bring you back so that we can hear that story, because we are a little bit out of town.
I would tell that story. I would tell you the short version's about 15 minutes long.
Yeah.
And the long versions, you don't have that much time.
All right. Well, then I'm going to invite you back and we'll talk about that specifically.
Happy to. Yeah.
Thank you for your time
Of
today.
course.
I have 3 fun questions at the end to wrap up.
Love it.
If I gave you $250,000 to make a difference today in our community, what would you do with it?
I don't know. That's a great question. Is there $250,000 spent on one project that would make a difference in our community? Yeah, but there's probably about 100 of them. And I don't know which one I would pick. Gosh, I think I've made that decision several times over the last 9 years, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
All right.
That's
okay.
That's a tough one. Jeez, that's a hard question.
No problem. Who do you have a role model?
Yeah,
Who is it?
my dad.
Okay. Just his hard
Simple.
work. I think you've shared that a
Yep.
lot.
Yeah, no. If I can emulate him in any way, I will.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. What is one small change more people could do in the community to make a difference?
I think changing their attitudes and just having more of an attitude of gratefulness. Remembering that if you were in a public-facing role in your job, whatever that is, remember that you may be giving somebody their first impression of our community at some point. And if you want our community to be successful, if you want it to grow, if you want those things, then you are responsible for making that first impression. And take that seriously. Well, you could be a gas station attendant or a clerk in a store, or gosh, so many different roles that we all have. And recognizing that we all have bad days, keep in mind that first impression could make all the difference in the world on those people, their view of our community, and they may be the people that invest that $250,000.
I love that. Thank you for your time today.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.